a sequel is a scary proposition. Frequently, when something great is made on its first venturing out into the wild, following it up with something else is extraordinarily difficult to do, which is why the list of truly impressive sequels, let alone sequels that were better than the original movie, is such a small one. A perfect example of this would be Batman games. Up until 2005, the concept of a good Batman game was laughable, largely due to the fact that there hadn't been any. Then a little-known studio called Rocksteady leapt onto the scene with a game called Batman Arkham Asylum. It was very nearly perfect, which made everybody really, really scared when they announced a follow-up not long after the game was launched for a sequel called Arkham City. It was also very nearly perfect. People were stunned by this because it's such a rare thing to find a sequel that's so much better than source material. Then it was announced that they were going to follow that up with another game, a third game, by the same minds and the same people, but this one was going to be a prequel, which is even more dangerous territory to tread, because who wants a prequel? We want the here, we want the now. Everybody already knows what Batman's backstory is, and we don't want him as a bumbling fool. We want him as the Dark Knight in his full glory. The prequel was also very nearly perfect. So now you've got 3 Batman games, none of them likely to succeed, all of them wildly successful, wildly replayable, extraordinarily enjoyable games. And then somebody went and tried for a 4th one. Batman Arkham Knight was released just a few days ago, and it stands as the 4th and most likely last chapter in the Arkham saga. And the thing that's on everybody's minds, with Batman now making his debut on next-gen consoles, is the 4th time what's finally going to be the end of the Dark Knight. If this is supposed to be the last chapter in this saga, you certainly can't tell it by the gameplay. Oh boy. The 4th game. It's so improbable. The game is fantastic that it's just nobody who's played the previous 3 games has any doubt whatsoever that the game was going to be fantastic. We all knew it was going to be fantastic as soon as they launched it. Just like we knew the 2nd and the 3rd game were also going to be fantastic. The people who drove Arkham Asylum crushed it so ferociously, and then followed up again and again and again, and just made things bigger and better and brought more of the world to your fingertips. The great thing about Batman, if it's treated appropriately as an intellectual property, is there's just so much to draw on. And as long as you do so intelligently and with respect to the source material, you just can't go wrong. And the guys at Rocksteady and Warner have just batted it out of the park over and over and over again, and Arkham Knight is no exception. Again, it is the 4th entry in the Arkham series. It is widely rumored to be the last chapter in this series, but to reveal that or any number of the other things about this title would be to spoil it horribly, and it is such an outstanding game that I will not be the one that does this for you. As a matter of fact, there's not a whole lot about the game that I can talk about without spoiling it, except to say that you desperately need to go play it. If you have any kind of respect or reverence for the source material, or if you've played the other 3 games, not playing this game is borderline criminal. Audio and video, the sound and the graphics are all outstanding. They've always been in these games. The Arkham games have always just absolutely pushed the boundaries of what all of the consoles they've been produced on were capable of. Asylum, City, Origins, they were all absolutely gorgeous games from a visual and an oral standpoint, and now that he's gone next gen, The Dark Knight has never looked better. I literally have zero problems with either the audio or the video in this game, except for the fact that the more photorealistic these games get, the more difficult sometimes it is to see the Dark Knight in a dark room in his dark batsuit kicking the ass of bad guys wearing black body armor. Because it's all dark, and they're doing great creative things with lighting, and sometimes that gets a little bit touchy in the scenes. It's kind of hard to be super duper grumpy about that, because you can just turn detective mode on, and suddenly you're one man dancing in a room full of bright blue skeletons that all want to kill you. So not that much of a gripe, but the rest of the game is just visually stunning. Arkham Asylum felt like it was a huge game, and Arkham City just felt like it got bigger and bigger. And so too with Arkham Origins. The strange is not the right word. From a perception standpoint, you really felt like the city was getting longer and wider, the map you had to play on, going from Asylum to City, and then from City to Origins. I won't necessarily say that the world feels bigger from a length or width standpoint in Arkham Knight, but it definitely feels taller, far more real. You don't feel like you have those self-imposed ceilings on you like you did on the other games. There's no hard ceiling up here just waiting to bounce you back down as you somehow manage to fly all the way up to the top of it. I frequently am stunned while I play this game that, oh my god, I'm hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air. I've been dive bombing straight down, picking up speed for like 5 seconds now, and I'm nowhere near the ground. The scope of how big this map is jaw-dropping sometimes, especially with the visual fidelity of the world around you. So definitely a beautiful game. Voice acting is top-notch. It's great to hear Kevin Conroy back in the saddle again. There are rumors that this is going to be his last appearance with Batman, and if that's the case, then it was delightful to hear him one more time. There are some audio clips where he's starting to sound just a little bit old, and that's probably because he's a little bit old, but it's just so stinking good to hear the pipes on that man. Kevin Conroy has been the voice of Batman for almost as long as I've been alive, as far as I'm concerned, with all respect to the other actors that have portrayed him in live action. He's been Batman for a long time. There'll always be a soft spot in my heart for that. So good to have him back, and of course the rest of the voice acting in the game as well is absolutely top notch. From a gameplay standpoint, I can't say that really much has changed about this game. You'd figure that we would have gotten bored with the same combat mechanic and the same gadget mechanic, and more or less the same upgrade mechanic, and that it is so well done that no, you haven't gotten bored by it. It's just that much more slick and just that much more amusing. There are a few little differences here and there to keep things fresh. As far as Predator gameplay and combat gameplay, and they really have done a good job continually giving a super rock solid system. Little facelifts here and there to make it feel like they've not just phoned the game design in. So definite kudos there. Obviously the single biggest addition to gameplay is one that most people will have heard about by now, especially if you bother to wander around the Batcave in Arkham City. You will have seen plans for the Batmobile, and of course you can play it to your little heart's content in Arkham City, in Arkham Knight. The city is fully navigable once you overcome certain obstacles in the Batmobile, and it's a city you can drive from end to end on. The Batmobile operates in 2 primary modes, the first of which is your forward driving, rocketing from point A to point B mode, and the second of which, when you hold L2 down, transforms it into a crab capable, and by crab I mean the ability to move like that, not just forward and backward and turning like a car. A crabbing capable call it an anti-tank platform with a Gatling gun and a Vulcan cannon on it for taking out some of the drone enemies, the drone tanks that have infiltrated Gotham City. Excuse me. The tank mode in all of the previews looked super duper complicated, and I'm delighted to say that in fact it is insanely easy and a riot and a blast to control. They've packed a great deal of functionality of the vehicle in, and it's just absolutely a hoot to control. I love the tank mode gameplay. It's a blast and a half, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure that it won't be a whole lot easier to control on a dual analog stick controller than it will be on a PC, which kind of the de facto for me has always been a PC was a better control scheme with all the different buttons available to you on your keyboard. But I'm not entirely sure that this one just isn't more easily managed with a dual analog controller, which is a feat. My respects and a burnt candle for all of the people out there with PCs who want to play this game. I sincerely hope they get all the problems with it fixed and you get your crack at this title. I apologize because it looks like a bad port. I realize that I have absolutely nothing to do with it, but please don't just write the game off. Wait until they fix it and try to play it. It is that good. The one downside to the Batmobile, and it is a huge downside, driving the Batmobile is a massive act of patience when it's in its primary drive mode. The streets, it is a huge vehicle, and the streets of Gotham City aren't necessarily meant for you to go barreling around at top speed inside of it. And as a result, it's difficult to control. I don't know how else to say it. I'd love to try to butter this up a little bit more that I can't. It's difficult to control. It moves too fast. It steers too sluggishly. There's so much tire squeal. There's so much loss of movement. The brakes don't work as well as they should. The reverse doesn't work as well as they should for a dual stage button on R2, which is what you pull the right trigger in order to engage your throttle. That was very poorly done. The Batmobile as a forward-moving regular car, it looks absolutely fantastic, and the ability to go into a first-person view like you're a Batman driving it is visually stunning and a blast and a half as long as you're traveling in a straight line. But the vehicle is hugely difficult to drive, and maybe there's just a learning curve, but I've talked to other people that have played the game so far, and with the exception of one who shall remain nameless, Pinpoint, everybody is just really on the same level about the fact that the Batmobile is just kind of difficult to control. This is doubly unfortunate because a great deal of some of the new gameplay mechanics revolve around not just being able to control the Batmobile in its normal operating mode, but drive it with a certain amount of precision. So that puts kind of a damper on some of the aspects of gameplay. It's also interesting to note that travel by cape and gliding is still the fastest mode of transit around the game. In this respect, there's kind of a silver lining with the Batmobile because you possess the ability to launch yourself up out of the Batmobile really high up in the sky and start your glide. You can actually purchase upgrades to rocket yourself out of the Batmobile even higher than normal, which makes beginning your transit that much easier. You don't ever have to worry about leaving the Batmobile someplace. You can just push the L1 button in most circumstances, and as long as you're at street level, the Batmobile will come directly to you. As a matter of fact, you can leave the Batmobile, clear across town, fly all the way to the other end of the map, press L1, and the Batmobile will come to you impossibly fast. It's kind of a neat mechanic, but it's a little bit broken, and you can use it to get around some of the nastier aspects of the game, some of the nastier driving challenges. Instead of taking the Batmobile there, you just jump out of the Batmobile, fly to where you're supposed to be, land on top of the beacon, and then summon the Batmobile to you. A little broken, a little bit, but not bad otherwise. It's an absolute joy to go rollicking around Gotham City in the Batmobile, because just about every facet of the environment is destructible. I know this because I've destroyed half the city in my Batmobile. Batman is apparently a prick driver. The storyline. Oh my goodness, the storyline. There's honestly not a whole lot about the story that I can tell you, because it's so riddled with spoilers. but I will tell you that the game begins with a bang, or with a burn in this case, and never stops. There are many legitimate jaw-dropping moments in the game where you'll just go, wow, there's no way that just happened, and it absolutely did. The writing in the game is phenomenal. It's definitely a game for mature audiences. It's definitely a mature storyline. It's definitely darker than any of the other Batman games have been. You really, in the first 3 games, kind of get the impression that Batman is semi-invincible and that he's the only one on the line. And that is certainly not the case in this game. He really is just... well, I can't say anything without spoiling it. The storyline is absolutely fantastic. Don't rush through this game. Take your time, listen to the dialogue, listen to everything that's going on. There's a lot of dialogue that you can blow past in the game. Don't do it. There's so much good stuff in this game, and the game tells so much of its story through those random little bits of dialogue that you'll miss if you don't take the time to just hold freaking still and listen to what's going on. And you need to, because it's a great story. Definitely just a fantastic writing. It really, really is. In summary, go get the game, go play the game, probably repeatedly. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. One of the aspects of the gameplay that I should definitely talk about is the way that missions are handled now. The game is no longer played in a linear fashion. You can get lots of ongoing side missions, and you have kind of a quest journal of your main objective, and then all of the other little... It pops up on your screen as a circle. And your main objective is always at 12 o'clock. But then you've got all these other little story missions moving around the circle that you can go and play, and the game certainly has a long main campaign, but there's tons and tons of additional content. Lots of little, you need to collect these items around the city, and you need to go hunt for this, and the game doesn't necessarily tell you where they those items are and those objectives are, so you have to kind of use detective vision and listen to audio snippets. And hunt stuff down and kind of be the detective. Tons of extra content for the people that don't just want the storyline, for the people that want to spend more time in the world doing regular, normal Batman-y type stuff. I'm delighted to say. The problem with all of that is that you're not going to want to do any of it once you start playing the story missions, because the story missions are so stinking good. It's actually kind of funny if you if you ignore the story for too long, you'll eventually start getting prompts from people in the game going, hey, so we know this is really important over here, but there's other stuff happening here and here and here that you should really go pay attention to as well. Or you could go back to running the main storyline missions. It's fun to see that mechanic at play, and you're definitely going to want to blow through the storyline. Slightly frustrating is the fact that you cannot beat the game without just completing the storyline. There are other things that you have to do as well. A set of missions known as Gotham's Most Wanted. It doesn't necessarily detract from things, but if you blow through the campaign before you've completed the Gotham's Most Wanted, you may just put the controller down and want to walk away from the game a little bit and just kind of before you go back to playing Batman. So do bear that in mind before you go and beat the last part of the game. Now we can go back around to the summary part. This is an absolutely fantastic, stinking game. It's beautiful. It's well done. It is everything that a last title in this series should be. And it's not for kids. But that makes it so much better. Yeah. Go be the damn Batman.